And we are kicking it off today. And I want to start off and create some framework. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Dean Cottrill, and I am an associate partner and EVP. I run the brokerage and team consulting division for T360. And one of the things that with this changing market and working with our clients to really not only combat the challenges of today, but also what are the things they're able to do today to win tomorrow's battles in their markets. And so that's the thing we're doing for our clients, and talking with Lisa Picardo, who's also on the brokerage and team consulting and working with Jack Miller and the others on our team. We talked about, let's go ahead and put a summer series together where we can send out information to help the industry, help those out there in the market that are competing for the business, and what are the things that you could do and implement into your business today that'll help you not only work through this current market and the challenges it brings about, but also the things that you can do to really invest into your current business today, whether that's time or energy or money, and the things that will benefit you not only today, but also in the future. So that's what this is all about. So that's the background on why we're doing this. So we're all about supporting the industry. If you know a little bit about T360, you'll have that insight into our organization. The format is a workshop. So typically we're going to do this every week between now and September 13th. So every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 Pacific, we're going to have, we call them pretty much like flash webinars, where it's high content, high information in a very short period of time. And the way we'll frame this is the first 5 minutes, we'll create some vision of what the topic is and what are the things that you should have top of mind as we get into the nuts and bolts of that topic. And then we'll dive into a workshop basis for around 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up in the last 5 minutes or so. So we're talking about 15 to 20 minute windows of time at this Wednesdays as we move forward through the summer. So with that, I'm going to start off with a little kind of vision and help everyone kind of wrap their mind around where you sit, because one of the things that we find here at T360 is all of our clients are different, of course, and they have different views they have different experience levels. People bring different superpowers, as we say, to the table. And so they also have different visions of their future and where they want to go. So probably a good way to explain this is to think about traveling. If you were traveling at night, it was dark, and you think about your headlights and you're on a road you've never been on before, you typically slow down, right? Because you don't know where that next turn is. And that's what happens in a market like now. We've actually had, there are 4 phases in a real estate cycle. We've just moved into a new phase since May, June of last year. And so everyone's trying to get their footing and understand, all right, what's this new world look like? And so as you reposition that future, your headlights used to be shining straight. The sun was up and everybody was running hard, putting transactions together. Well, that's changed. And so, and every market's different. So some markets are changed a lot more than others, but there is change that has taken place because of all the things that we know why. Interest rates, other challenges, lack of inventory, all those things that are going on in the marketplace. So that, as I go through this, as we go through each one of these calls, with the context of understanding your market, we're not in your market, we're not talking directly with you right now, but we're going to do it roughly at about a good 1,000 foot, not 10,000, but 1,000 foot, 500 foot view on things that you can think about in your business to implement and make an impact. So think about the headlights. So what our goal is here is to really to give you super powered headlights, put the rack on top of your car where you have even more headlights coming out. And we also are going to put some good Tesla technology in it where you're going to be able to see the road into the future and maybe even see around some corners. So you'll know what's coming before it even comes at you, and you can make some decisions to help you run your business more efficiently, more effectively, and profitably. And those are the 3 areas of focus that we're going to have on these calls. So that's kind of the framework of why we're doing this. And so the topics, I'm going to pull up a slide here. I'm going to show you some of the 7 areas of profitability that we talk about. These are 7 and very important areas. And we're going to dive into each one of these areas as we go through this series throughout the summer. But let me start off because I want to hit this 7 areas, and then we'll get into actual discussion on one of these key areas, actually one subsection of one of these areas. And so if you think about 7 key areas, the agent count is number one. Number two, units sold. What are your closed units? And one thing as an assignment, talking about a workshop, one of the things that we find as we work with clients and we have people move into it working with us as a client, is very rarely to organizations, whether large teams, successful teams, or brokerages, are they doing a year-over-year comparison? So this one thing I would strongly encourage. I'm going to show you a spreadsheet in a second that's going to give you some more indication of what that looks like. But agent count. All right, so 2022, if you look back where you are year to date, where were you last year to date? Agent count, units sold. How many units have you sold this year versus last year? What percentage are you down? Are you at? Are you up? What does that look like? Average sales price, same thing. Average commission per transaction side. So what is that average commission that you have going on right now? And I encourage you, especially if you were on our call last week where we talked about the pending compensation lawsuits, that buy side commission and what's going on, it's really important to break that out. So your average commission per transaction side, where you look at the list side transactions closed and what you are making on a transaction side and the buy side. And I encourage you to break those out. That's one of the best practices that we're doing, working with clients to help support them to really be on the front side of that change potentially that could come because of those pending lawsuits. So divide that out, know where you stand. And retained earnings, company dollar percentage. So what are you keeping as company dollar as a percentage of your gross commission that's generated from your sale? That is a key area benchmark for you to understand and know. So that'll tie to your profitability of running an effective, efficient, and profitable business. Operating expenses. That's something, there's 6 key areas in operating expenses. We're going to dive into that in a second. And one of these areas is we're going to spend the time today really honing in on the number one largest expense in running a real estate business organization, and that is staff. And so we'll get into that and talk about best practices and some things that you could implement today to impact your business. And the last is return on revenue, your net profit. So what is that bottom line profit that you're generating? And then the return on revenue, the ROR, what is it as a percentage of the gross commission that's coming in? That's one of those other benchmarks you can see and say, okay, how is the overall operation performing, bottom line profit as a percentage of the total? These 7 key areas, one of the things that we talk about with our clients is these are areas that actually you have the ability to impact. You have through focus, energy, through knowledge, you have and through systems and other things along those tools, you can really impact these numbers and they will have the biggest bottom line impact to the effectiveness, efficiency, and profitability of your business. There are so many rabbit holes that we could run down in our business. This is why we hone it into these 7 areas. And really there are 5 key areas, and then returned earnings percentage and return on revenue percentages. Those really are benchmarks. They actually give you percentages and it shows us how all these other numbers are performing. So with that, we're going to dive into expenses and let's hone in on specifically the area that we're going to be discussing in today as a workshop. And one of the things that we try to do here is really simplify all this, right? We're not trying to overcomplicate it and say, you know what, let's make this really complicated. No, we want to simplify this for you so we make it easier. All right, so part of it is increasing your knowledge. As you increase your knowledge, it actually will give you the ability to make better executive decisions in the running of your business. And then through that executive understanding and knowledge that you have, then you're able to move in a direction in a much faster way to implement change. And frankly, this is where change in the market is causing this to happen. And there are some executives in the leadership chairs that are more frozen, frankly, because they don't know which way to go. They're not familiar maybe with this type of market, or it's been a long time since they've experienced this. So let's dive in, and I want to point out, and we're going to dive into the expense categories. So one of the things, and you can see the last 12 months and previous 12 months, if you look at column E and column F here, this is one of the things we encourage you to do. And this is one of the documents. You can see all these tabs at the bottom. This is one of the documents that we use when working with clients and we take a deep dive to audit their business and help support them. So one of the things you want to do is understand how you're performing over the last 12 months and then 13 to 24 months back, looking at those 2 windows of time. How much money were you spending in the staff payroll area? And that includes everything from the taxes, the benefits, anything involved with bonuses, anything in that area you want to put in this bucket. This is also one of the biggest challenges we see. A lot of organizations are not only are they not looking at the 24-month window and seeing the variance between current last 12 months and the prior, they're actually not tracking their expenses. Most organizations that are smaller are using QuickBooks, and QuickBooks uses an alphabetical order of placing expenses. And I always kind of smile when I say this, but you're not running, it's not Sesame Street. You're running a business. So we want to make sure we bucket expenses and really pay attention to them so you can make those executive decisions. Facilities is the number 2 largest expense when running an organization typically. Marketing, non-lead gen marketing. What are you doing in that area? Lead gen marketing. This is an area, if you're not in, I'm going to talk about that today. This is an area that I'm going to encourage you to move into, where you as an organization, whether you're a team, you're definitely in that space. And if you're not a team, you're a brokerage, you need to move into that space is what I'd encourage you to do. And we'll talk about that lead generation. So you break it out, and then we have technology cost, and then you have other. So other. Now, if other ends up being a very large percentage of your expenses, because they don't fall in these other categories, then you want to really hone in on what is the biggest items within the other category and create another bucket so you can really track it and understand what's happening. So I'm going to slide up here as we continue our workshop, basically process here of really helping in our summer series, talking about how to really turn those lights on for your car, as I'm mentioning, and driving down that dark road. Let's illuminate that road more. So when we're talking about the number 1 largest expense in your business, this is typically a topic most people, get uncomfortable about, because we're getting into talking about staff, making changes. Potentially those changes don't go well because we're talking about with human beings and the idea of making a change or eliminating roles and things like that. And there's friction there for leaders, and it's a challenging thing. And I completely see that, and I understand it. I've been there. So I get it. But with that, that's what this chair is all about. And leadership is understanding where you are as an organization and to benefit those in the organization long-term and have the best place to succeed. So we look at here, number of staff. So one of the things I encourage you to do is think about your full-time staff and look at a year-over-year basis. So last year, when we started off in 2022, everyone's like, wow, life was great, right? Homes are selling like hotcakes, interest rates, money was free almost. So there's a lot of things. You probably had a lot of staff going into that period of time. You might have made adjustments at the end of last year. Maybe you haven't. But this is where you want to document, where are your number of staff, operations, virtual assistants, ISAs, if you have internal sales agents that are helping support incubation of leads and things along those lines, or supporting your agents, number of marketing assistants, number of transaction coordinators, number of closing coordinators. So some of these buckets might not be specific to what you have as staff. So do the best you can and put them in whatever category, or create your own spreadsheet. So that's full-time staff. And then you have part-time staff. So down here, what part-time staff? Anybody that's going to be under 40 hours falls into, typically it's going to be in the 30 hour time, probably runs into a part-time. Anybody in the part-time staff area, what does that look like? And then let's total that number. So what is the total that you're looking at between here and here? Now, our spreadsheet, everything in gray, is going to be a benchmark. It'll actually be auto-populated from formulas. So what we do in here, and I suggest you do the same, is anybody who's part-time is considered a half FTE, full-time employee. So if you have two part-time employees in some area of supporting your agents, your business, your team, that's going to be 1 FTE, full-time equivalent, and that'll help in the numbers. So full-time, part-time, how does that look year over year? This spreadsheet goes on to talking about square footage and things like that. But this is the area where you really want to compare and look at and say, okay, when I look at my current employee comp numbers versus the prior period, am I still running at the same level? All right. And if I go back to that 7 key areas of profitability that I mentioned, this is where you really want to look at your numbers and how you're performing year over year. If I slide down on this worksheet, you'll see that. Here's the production areas. So in this written and accepted offers, closed offers. So how is that going? How's it performing on a year over year basis? That is going to play into you understanding if you're going to close X transactions versus Y the prior year, you're off whatever percentage that is. if you forecast out the rest of this year, 2023, and you say you're currently performing a 12% reduction in units, and let's say the price is flat, well, the total, you can predict and forecast what your revenue is going to look like at the end of this year. And when you have that information, it is not, it's not 100% accurate that that's where you're going to be, but that is the best indicator that we have from your current performance that you're seeing. So understanding that, knowing that revenue, you're going to have to make decisions. And from those decisions, you're going to have to reposition. So with that, this is where we're dealing with staff. So focusing on this area, let's understand those 7 areas in the operations area. The number one expense is staff. Let's look at your current staff. How's it going year over year? If you are currently staffed the same as you were the prior year and your units are down, nationally right now, the number is 17%, almost 20% down in units. Some areas are up to 40. And some are down just a fraction, a couple of percentage points. So it all depends on your market. So that's where you have to take that into account and understand, okay, if my units are off 20%, do I need the same amount of staff that are handling these transactions and helping support my agents, things like that? And that's where you then start to move into a next conversation and you think about, all right, let's go at it and let's put together an org chart, an organization chart, and let's look at the current roles that I have and understand in each of these roles, you want to start creating or should have already a job description. What is the job description for a sales manager, for example, or for a recruiter, or a marketing director, vice president of operations, whatever it might be? And I understand transaction manager, you see all these different categories. And this is just a sample of an org chart. Your business might be much smaller. It might be you and 1 or 2, 3 employees, things like that. You might be larger and have multiple offices. That's where you really want to hone in and understand what is everybody doing, because what they did a year ago, they're not doing as much. One of the benchmarks that you could calculate that will help you, and I'm going to go out of share here for a second just to get a little bigger on the screen. One of the things that we encourage organizations to do is evaluate what you currently are closing, your closed transactions, and divide it by your full-time employees, your FTEs. And that'll give you a closed unit per FTE benchmark. And if you look at last year's and how many closed units you had and the number of employees, and you look at and what that looks like as a number, typically you want to be around 125, depending on the model. If you're a team, it's going to be lower because you have much more higher service in a team typically, and you're also keeping a lot more company dollar typically on the transactions. In a brokerage, it's going to be closer to 125 to 150 closed units per FTE, full-time equivalent, is a benchmark. So that's where you want to see. And one of the things, this goes to your guys' individual knowledge, your understanding of where you are in the business, your past knowledge of working and being a broker or a team leader. And then as you look at today, turn those headlights on and say, okay, how am I performing today in that area? And how was it last year as a comparison? And that's going to then move us into the last part of this conversation on staffing is, what do we do now? All right. And that's not to be frozen. So, well, of course, one of the first things you can do is eliminate roles. There could be something that's come to the point where your current unit count is such where you have to make some elimination of roles. Prior to doing that, that's why I showed your org chart. You want to make sure you document everything somebody does in certain roles and understand your organization chart. Can you basically adjust a role because of the unit count being down where they could take on other tasks and support other tasks? So that's where you look to potentially combine roles or adjust a role that a very efficient employee could take on more, and then you can potentially eliminate some roles to save you some money. So that is first. Second is you can reposition staff. I'm looking at my notes. Yes, I want to make sure I don't miss anything. You can reposition the staff. So when you think about your current, you might have great staff, and so you want to basically say, okay, I want to reposition them. And this would be the thing I would say is a suggestion is reposition them into company generated business that's going to make you money, that's going to make you a higher percentage return on your investment of money. So with that, if you want to reposition somebody into an ISA's position or handling the internal sales agent role where you're supporting company generated business, and then you're placing that business with an E team or an agent team that is I'm talking specifically in a brokerage space, where you have these agents really honed in and trained, and you're holding them accountable to these leads, and you're actually adjusting the compensation where you, as an organization, are making a lot more per transaction. That'd be something that we are seeing, and we encourage that you reposition those staff into that area if they're very talented and you think they'll hone in and do a great job. That's also another area that we encourage you to start moving down if you're not there, and if you are there, run faster down that path. Virtual assistants, we've seen that for years, especially in the teams. It started really big in teams where they go with virtual assistants, and we're looking at nearshore or offshore virtual assistant organizations. It's actually surprisingly very efficient, even within T3, that we have gone down that road with virtual assistants and find it to be very effective, very capable people supporting your operation. So that is something to consider and look at. And then the other piece, the last one I'll throw out, and will sound kind of maybe interesting to some of you. Right now, there are organizations in this down market that are investing in their business. They are saying this is the change when rubber has hit the road here, and we were positioned in a good place. We knew this was not going to last forever. And so now we're going to invest people as a recruiter, for example, or we're going to start going out and do merger and acquisitions. And we'll have separate calls as we go through this weekly series on merger and acquisitions, for example. So we'll be diving into that. But this might be an opportunity, depending on how you're sitting financially and as an organization, that you're going to invest. You're going to go out and start knocking on doors and seeing who's in that marketplace that really needs to fold in and merge their business with somebody else because they're just running out of cash. So there is great opportunity in this on all these fronts. And that's one of the things I would end with, is the mindset, is really have the mindset. There is opportunity in this market. There's opportunity in every market. Just hone in, gather information, make decisions, and then go. All right. Indecision is the wrong decision. It always is. So gather the information and then make a decision on what you're going to do, what you're going to implement. Make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's, and then go. All right. So that is and concludes our first call here on LinkedIn Live. Say that 10 times fast. I hope you found to be informative. I hope you found to be helpful. Each one of these calls, as we head through and go up to September 13th, is going to be on a key topic and an area of running a brokerage and a team in a more efficient, effective, and profitable way. Thank you all very much. Take care and have a great day.